Welcome back to the On Time, On Budget podcast, where we break down the tools, techniques, and strategies that help us manage work smarter. I'm your host, John Shoemaker, and today we're discussing one of the most fundamental concepts every project manager needs to master: the triple constraints. If you've ever wondered why projects go off track, this episode is for you. Let's start with a simple truth. Every project operates under constraints, but three constraints are universal, appearing in every single project you'll ever manage. We call these the triple constraints: time, cost, and scope. Think of these constraints as the three sides of a triangle. Time is how long you have to complete the project. Cost is your budget, the resources you're authorized to spend. And scope is what you need to accomplish, the actual work that must be done to meet your project goals. Now here's where it gets interesting. Just like the sides of a triangle, these constraints are interconnected. Change one and you affect the other two. This is why understanding their relationship is absolutely critical to project success. In fact, failing to grasp this interconnection is a direct contributor to most project failures. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine your sponsor suddenly cuts your timeline by a month. What happens? Well, you might need to increase costs by adding more team members, or you might need to reduce scope by cutting features. You can't just shrink time in isolation. The triangle won't allow it. Here's something many project managers miss. Not all three constraints are equally important. The relative importance varies from project to project. And here's the key. It's the sponsor or customer who decides their priorities, not you. We use three terms to describe this hierarchy. The most important constraint is the driver. This has the least flexibility because it matters most to your sponsor. The least important is the weak constraint, and the remaining one is the middle constraint. When you're making tough decisions, you should always favor the driver. But here's the challenge: defining these constraints clearly. Time and cost are straightforward. You measure time in days, weeks, or months. You measure cost in dollars or euros. Simple. Scope, however, is where things get messy. There's no universal measure for scope. Each project is unique, and scope must be defined in detail. This is why inadequate scope definition sits at the root of so many project conflicts and failures. So what should you do? First, define each constraint as precisely as possible. You can't manage what you haven't clearly defined. Second, understand your sponsor's priorities. Which constraint is the driver? Which is weak? If your sponsor says they're all equally important, you need to push back and force a choice. Ask them directly, if we can't meet both time and cost, which matters more? Some experienced project managers suggest an interesting approach. Let the sponsor determine the driver and middle constraint, and then you, as the project manager, determine the weak constraint. For example, if the sponsor sets the cost and timeline, you determine what scope is achievable. This helps ensure the constraints are balanced. There's another useful tool I want to mention: the flexibility diagram. Instead of just three constraints, this model looks at 5 dimensions: features, quality, staff, costs, and schedule. You rate each from 0 to 10 based on how much flexibility you have. High scores mean high flexibility. Low scores mean you're locked in. This diagram shows you at a glance where you have room to maneuver when you need to rebalance your project. The bottom line is this: you will make trade-offs throughout your project. That's inevitable. But a project manager who doesn't know the sponsor's priorities is making decisions in the dark, and that's a recipe for failure. So remember, time, cost, and scope are interconnected. Change one, and you affect the others. Know which constraint is your driver, and always make decisions that favor it. Define your constraints clearly, especially scope. And never start a project without understanding your sponsor's priorities. Thanks for tuning in to the On Time, On Budget podcast. If you found this episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe, share it with your team, and drop us a review. If you would like a copy of my book, On Time, On Budget, use the QR code on the screen. It will take you to Amazon, where you can purchase a copy. Until next time, keep managing smarter, not harder.